Yoda, hello. Welcome back. I'm Kirsty Salisbury, host of the Let's Talk Near Death podcast. We are here today. We have got some interesting topics coming up. I'm chatting with Samuel Chong, who is all about the mind, body, and spirit connection. He talks about some interesting topics, things like spirituality, near-death experiences, extraterrestrials. It's a topic I haven't gone into much, talking about ET visits. We're going to talk about that a bit more today. He's all about the ancient mysteries, esoteric knowledge, all of these beautiful things. He's also a Chinese translator, and he has recently translated a very high-selling book called the Thiaoouba Prophecy. It's the story of the author's experience, and he had this amazing spiritual experience, which Samuel's going to share with us. He went out of body, he learned all about life, he learned about purpose, he learned about the future of the earth, astral travel, all of these great things, and we're going to be talking about that today. So Samuel, welcome along to the show. It's great to have you here. The book is all about interesting topics and conversations. It's packed with information. How did you get into doing this work?
Because I was always fascinated by the near-death experiences that I read when I was young in elementary school. I remember when I was little, I went to my uncle's place and there was a newspaper in Chinese language that talked about near-death experiences. I was so amazed and fascinated by the content that I thought, oh, it's not so scary to die. So I was so interested in such topics. But then later on, I read so many things about UFOs or extraterrestrials. I thought that if the ETs could come and visit us, they must have advanced knowledge, including the meaning of life and then the meaning of death and so on and so forth, as well as technologies that they have. So I was very curious about what they have to tell us, since they have advanced civilizations. And then that's when my search started. I was looking for books written by ET contactees. And then back in 2014, I accidentally found this book called Thiaoouba Prophecy, which talks about near-death experiences and also the past lives of the author, who actually had 80 past lives shown to him in holographic form, as well as the events that happened about 14,500 years ago, in which he actually visited the past in his astral body form. And then his experiences of leaving his physical body, going to the astral body form, and then visiting the past is actually very similar to some of the experiences that the people had when they had near-death experiences.
Yeah, wow. There's so much in that, isn't there? It's amazing because you're aligning the physical experience with the spiritual experience. And so much overlap happens. We're talking about astral travel. We're talking about being out of body. It's such a big topic. It's such a
It
big
is.
topic. The author of the book, the Thiaoouba Prophecy, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, Michel de Marc, is that how we say his name?
Michel de Marquet.
He was a French man. He wrote this story about his experience, and then you ended up translating it. So how did you make the connection to him, and what was that like for you reading about his personal experience?
So the book is so fascinating because it covers a wide range of topics, including ancient civilizations, the human energy fields, auras, or some people would call the biofields, and reincarnation, the meaning of life, the real dangers on Earth. Number one, money. Number two, politics or politicians. Number three, journalists and drugs. Number four, religions. He also talks about what we need to do to respond to the current day challenges that we all face in our lifetime, and also talks about how we can act together to against tyrannies in the world. It also talks about some of the ancient mysteries, as well as the paranormal events like the Bermuda Triangle and who built the
Oh,
Great Pyramid
yes.
of Egypt. So it's so fascinating that I couldn't put the book down. In the postscript of the book, it says there are far more incredible things that the author, Michel de Marquet, wasn't allowed to write in the book because we were far from understanding them. That actually got me extremely curious. I tracked the author down. he was living in Vietnam at that time, and I flew to Vietnam without knowing his exact address. I just took a photo that I found on the internet, which showed his bungalow, and I showed that picture, the photo, to the local taxi driver, asking him to take me there. On the second try, he took me to the right place where I met the author Michel de Marquet.
Wow, that is so cool. So you read his book, and that was enough for you to get on a plane and go to Vietnam to track him down.
Yes, from Los Angeles, spending $2,000 on my own, which was really expensive for me.
Do you know, I love it. I love it because this just gets me really excited because there's so much adventure in that. What was it like when you met him? Did you know what he looked like? Did you know who you were looking for? When you met him, what happened?
I kind of knew how what he looked like because there are photos of him on the internet,
Okay, yeah.
but he wasn't really happy to see me because he was happy to see the tourists who accidentally met him, but he wasn't really happy to see people just looking for him and meeting him because of the book. Also because I was asking him a lot of questions. Maybe those were just questions too easy for him to answer. And he just asked me to read the book one more time, and then I would have all the answers that I asked him about. But then things changed drastically. 2 days before I was about to depart, he showed me a contract that he signed with a Chinese publisher. He said that he was paid $2,000 for the copyright fees in order to give the publisher permission to have the book published in China, but he never heard from the publisher. He asked me to follow it up and to see what happened. It turned out that the publisher in China decided not to have the book published because of the fear of the censorship there. And then Michelle asked me to find a different publisher, whether it's in China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, or Singapore, just to have it published in Chinese. And then I took a lot of efforts and got it published in China and Taiwan.
Mm. Yeah, and I bet that going through that journey, you learned quite a bit because as a translator, you have to be very sure what you're translating. There's different words for the same thing, or it can be picked up different ways across languages, I think. So, do you feel like you really got in behind the book? Do you feel like you just understood the essence of this book?
After reading 8 or 9 times, yes. Not the
Eight or
first
nine
time.
times. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot. The fact that you've read it that many times too.
I
Wow.
mean, I read far more than 8 or 9 times. It's only after reading 8 or 9 times I got the essence of the book.
Oh, okay, okay. And that was what he had said to you was go and read the book again, go and read the book again. Oh, I
Yes.
just love that you got on a plane and went and found him. I just think that's so cool. I like it. I think there's a big adventure in there. So are you able to let us know a little bit about what is in the book? What was his experience? Are you allowed to share that, or is that for him
Yes.
or
Yes, I can tell you basically what's written in the book. I can give you some hints about what's not written in the book. Um,
okay?
he actually had a very unique experience back in 1987. In the middle of the night in June, he was taken by this group of ETs to their planet called Thiaoouba for 9 days and then came back. He brought a lot of knowledge about where we all came from originally. We didn't come from apes or gorillas. We actually all came from different planets originally. And who built the Great Pyramid of Egypt? It turned out that a great wise, learned person called Thoth from Atlantis built the Great Pyramid of Egypt about 12,000 years ago. As we all know, Atlantis disappeared, um, and um, and the great civilizations and knowledge and technologies were lost after the burning of the library of Alexandria in Egypt. Um, but then it also talks about the importance of seeing auras because the colors are really important at showing the emotional state of the person, but also can tell or foretell or predict what kind of physical illness the person may have in the future. People like Barbara Brennan can see auras, and very interesting books called Hands Up Light, and she had a very interesting story about how she saw grayish color in the liver area of her friend, and then a few months later, her friend had liver cancer.
So he could see auras, or he came back with the ability to see auras, or
He was given the ability to see auras while he was on the planet,
yeah.
Thiaoouba. But when he came back, he lost the ability because the gift was given to him only for the time when he was in the planet,
Mm,
and just to learn how important it is to perceive auras and to interpret auras. Um, but most importantly, he was taught about the meaning of life through his experience of going through his past lives in astral form. He was taught that the importance of living a fulfilling life is to learn the spiritual lessons. He was told that our physical body is just a tool for our spirit or our astral body to use to learn the different life lessons that each of us has to learn, and also we all go through reincarnations. And the reason that we don't remember our past lives is that when the astral body goes into the embryo, it has to go through what the ancient Nagas would call the river of oblivion, forgetting all the lessons we learned in the past lives, forgetting all the events that happened in our past lives. So that's why most of us don't remember our past lives. But a few, like especially younger children, a few of us may remember. This is the reason why Dr. Ian Stevenson documented about 1,000 children who remember their past lives. Um, and this is the reason he wrote a peer-reviewed paper on reincarnation, suggested reincarnation. And so according to the ETs and this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, we have to experience different roles in our past lives. And the different roles that we experience in our past lives are just like different positions on a wheel. What goes up has to come down. So we have to experience being a beggar on the street. We also may experience being the richest person in the world.
mm,
So it really doesn't matter whether you are the richest person like Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos or like any other person. The most important thing is how you respond to your challenges, because the wealthy people have their challenges,
mm.
but the poorest people in the world have unique or different challenges. So we all have to learn the challenges by responding to the events that we see in our lifetime and learn spiritual lessons that way.
Mm. Yeah, I really like this concept. And it's funny, I was having a conversation with someone just this morning, and we were talking about how everyone has their challenges, just like you've said, how the richest person might have health challenges and the healthiest person might have financial challenges. And we've got all of this makeup of all these different things that we could be going through, but actually, exactly as you've just said, it's about how we approach these challenges, what we do, how we get through, how we learn the lessons. So it does get me thinking, and I've been asked this question a lot of times. If we're going through and we're learning all of these spiritual lessons, and you've talked about past lives and reincarnation and potentially coming back to learn either a new lesson or an extra part of a lesson, what is the goal? Do we run out of lessons? Do we achieve a graduation where we stop learning? Why are we here learning all these lessons? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's written in the book, so this is
Okay,
why I
great.
strongly I strongly encourage people to get the book and read about it, because it's a very interesting book full of knowledge, full of information that can enlighten a lot of the readers. So according to the book, we learn the different lessons in our lifetimes, current lifetime and future lifetimes, so we can progress spiritually. The most important thing is not to accumulate wealth, because we don't take away material wealth when we die. What we take away is the spiritual lessons we learn. As we progress, we can move up the ladder, because we are currently living on category 1 planet on Earth, learning the basics because that's the lowest category in the universe. When we accumulate spiritual lessons, we may move up the ladder and to live on category 2 planet or even a category 3 planet. And then there are a total of 9 different categories of planets in the universe. The Thiaoubans, the ETs in the book, come from the category 9 planet in our Milky Way galaxy. There are 3 category 9 planets in our galaxy, and they're just like professors or mentors, sometimes guiding us directly or sometimes indirectly, giving us hints and directions. A lot of the events documented in the Bible were the events that actually happened due to their interventions. For example, the destructions of the 2 cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, were done by the Jehovah's or Theubans, and so were the events happened in during Exodus when Moses led ancient Hebrews out of Egypt. Um, I asked people, who do you think that really part of the sea of reeds for Moses? Do you think is God? Not really God. They're the Theubans or Jehovah's, the extraterrestrials who actually helped Moses to lead the Hebrews out of Egypt. They were the people who gave the Hebrews manna to eat during the journey, and they actually gave the Ten Commandments to Moses as well. So in essence, the Theubans were actually the Jehovah's mentioned in the Bible, but God is God. God is the great ether, the creator of the universe, the great spirit that created everything. So when God created every one of us, it inserted a tiny portion of itself to each of our astral bodies. So God is a pure spirit. It wants to experience its spiritual experiences through a material world. So that's why we are experiencing everything that happens in our world, and we send feedback that of what we experience to our astral body, which send our experience or spiritual experiences to our higher self, which is part of the creator. Um, so once we reached level 9 or category 9 planet, then we can join and rejoin the great ether or the creator at any time. That's a blissful experience. And then we can just relax and become a part of the creator.
Oh, that sounds so nice, doesn't it? So, from what you're saying, you said Earth is like a level 1 out of
Yeah.
9. So, we're like in kindergarten here. I don't want to use the word immature lightly, but we're quite uneducated at this point. We don't really understand how things work. Is that right?
Spiritually, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is why we see a lot of wars and conflicts in the world. This is because we don't understand that we all come from the creator. A lot of people are not spiritually enough. They think that we have to fight against certain people in order to obtain more material wealth. This is not the case because we are all creations of the creator.
Yeah. Okay. If we're looking at quite traditional beliefs, there's light and darkness, there's heaven, there's hell, there's positive, there's negative. Is there another side? Like, can we get through this level? Is there a lower level than level 1?
Yes, there are level 2, level 3, level 4 until level 9.
Going
There's
down?
going down. No, no, we are
So
at the
we're at the
lowest
base.
level, unfortunately.
Okay. So I'm just thinking about the concept of heaven and hell and thinking about how we're progressing upwards through the levels to be more in the ether, to be more connected to God. Is this the furthest away from God that
Um,
be?
it is. There's no hell in the
Okay.
universe. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if a person, for example, Hitler killed so many people during World War II, and then when Hitler dies, he would have a life review process in which everything he did will be shown to him holographically. So he would be able to feel the pains and sufferings of the people he killed. And then he would be so regretful of the things he did and then he would choose to experience or suffer the pain suffered by the people he killed. In that sense, he would experience like a hell-like event or experience. This is not imposed by the creator. This is due to his own personal evaluation of his what he did in his past life. So in that sense, he would experience the sufferings like hell-like experience, but there's no hell at all.
Okay, so it's a personal version of hell. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Gosh, it sounds fascinating. I've talked to a lot of people who believe that they've had multiple lifetimes. Actually, I think you said that the author had looked at 80 past lives. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you say that?
Yes, he was shown his 80 past lives.
So were those 80 past lives all here on Earth, or were they on these other, do we call them planets, other locations, other levels?
Most of his past lives were here on Earth. Like, for example, he was a goldsmith in Japan. He was a few times a beggar on street. He was a child in Chad, the country Chad,
Mm-hmm.
and then he was eaten by a lion. He was
Oh
a
my
German
goodness.
mining worker, who accidentally killed his wife, leaving like 8 children behind. But
Oh,
he also had other. I know it's a very sad story.
it really
Uh,
is.
Yes. He also had other lifetimes on different planets. For example, once he was a queen ruling a third of the planet, which had two suns, like two like stars, um, and then like a bi star system, solar system, and um, and he was also like living on category 7 planet in one of his past lives. And then for some reason, he decided to come to Earth, maybe to fulfill his mission, which is to document his unique experience of living on a different planet for 9 days.
Mm. Okay. So he believes that we can go between different planets, different levels. It's
Yes.
not necessarily, I've forgotten the word, where you go in order. Um,
Exactly. So
yeah.
we don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Mm.
We can jump to 3 or maybe 5 or maybe 7. And actually, Moses originally came from his astral body, came from category 8 planet. And Jesus, the Jesus who was born out of Virgin Mary, originally came from category 9 planet. But this book actually explains um, why Jesus never performed any miracles before the age of 30, at least documented in the Bible, and why some people say that Jesus went to India, and why there's a tomb of Jesus in Shingo Village, Japan, uh, and then why Christ suddenly was able to perform all the miracles after he began preaching, and why Christ, when he saw his mother, didn't call his mother mother, he calls his mother woman. And so there are a lot of interesting events that happened in the past that didn't really make sense to me. But this book explains everything and connects all the dots and answered all my questions I had when I was reading the Bible.
Yeah, wow. It's amazing. There's so much in there. Were there any questions along the way where you felt like you had a really big revelation of, now I get it?
Yeah. When I read the Bible, I believed none of the nonsense.
None of
I
it?
thought, right, I didn't believe a single word in the Bible. But after
Okay.
reading this book, I believe that certain events really did happen in the past, as documented by the scribes in the past. Christ could perform miracles because the astral body didn't go through the river of oblivion. So Christ remembered the ways to walk on water, to materialize objects like manifesting foods, and also to resurrect the dead. Um, they did this because they wanted the people to believe the teachings of Christ. Because people in the past, as well as people nowadays, they wouldn't just believe the teachings of anyone. Someone would have to perform miracles in order for his teachings to be believed by the people at that time. Um, and it also explains why they chose the Hebrews, why the Hebrews were the chosen people, because we all came from different planets. The blacks and the yellows came from a planet of category 1 originally. The blacks landed in Australia, and the yellows landed in what's now today's Myanmar. So they had great civilizations before until asteroid hit Earth, split into 3 parts, wiping out the entire civilization, almost the entire civilization. And then later on, there were other people who landed on Earth in the continent of Lemuria in the Pacific Ocean. They were the ancestors of the Polynesians. They also had great civilizations, building a great pyramid that's 3 times as large as the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And they colonized Atlantis, giving them knowledge, and so Thoth was able to build a Great Pyramid in Egypt. But unfortunately, the continent of Lemuria sunk into the ocean almost overnight because of an earthquake. Atlantis later also disappeared as well because of natural disasters. The Hebrews, the Jewish people, came the latest, about 12,000 years ago, from a different planet of a different category. The planet is called Hebra. It's a category 3 planet. So in other words, we all came from the category 1 planet, including the Caucasians. But the Hebrews came from category 3 planet, more spiritual and more intelligent and highly spiritual. And this is why the extraterrestrials from Thiaoouba chose the Hebrew people, because they were following the worst, the more spiritual path of lives. And they decided to give the Hebrews a hand because back in Moses' times, the ancient pharaohs of Egypt were kind of preventing the Hebrews to live a spiritual life. So that's why they decided to intervene by having Moses to lead Hebrews out of Egypt. About 2,000 years ago, similar things happened. The Romans, again, were preventing the Hebrews living a very spiritual life. So this is why they decided to have Jesus to be born that way and to have Christ come to us to help us to realize the importance of love and reincarnation. And they chose the Hebrews because, the reason that I just mentioned, they originally came from category 3 planet.
So, in terms of the Bible, you started off by saying I didn't believe a word of the Bible, and then now you believe. Do you believe the whole Bible is truth, or do you believe bits of the Bible? Can you believe bits of the Bible but not other bits?
Well, now I believe certain events that were documented in the Bible really happened, such as the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, what happened during Exodus, the parting of the sea, and the things that Jesus or Christ preached and performed, or the miracles that he performed. But I don't believe everything in the Bible. I believe what Christ taught us, and I really believe that we should follow the teachings of Christ, but not to follow the teachings of the priests or pastors who
Hard to distinguish, aren't they?
right, hard to distinguish. Just
Yeah.
read just read what Jesus said to us or Christ taught us and follow the teachings of Christ, and I think you'll be okay.
Okay. I've got two questions I want to go down, two very different pathways. One is still in the same vein of what we're talking about. It's around, do you believe there is the need for salvation, that we need to be saved, that we need to acknowledge God or Jesus for salvation?
No, not at all.
So, can we fail this lifetime? We're here to have these lessons, these spiritual lessons. Can we get them wrong? What happens if we
Mm.
do?
Yes, for people who try to accumulate material wealth, or for people who hurt others, for people who use hallucinogenic drugs, they are failing their life or this lifetime. They are not learning the spiritual lesson that they are supposed to learn. If they don't treat others nicely or compassionately, they're failing this lifetime. If they don't follow the Ten Commandments, they're failing this lifetime. But they can relearn the lessons. They can reincarnate and to go through everything again. But I would want to go to the uh, go to the Category 9 planet as fast as possible. So I don't want to waste time. So I want to
Yeah, so that's the goal, is it? Is to get up to the category 9, to not keep repeating lives here.
that's right.
So I'm going back to my conversation I had with someone separately to you this morning, and we were talking about how everyone has their thing in their life, their lessons to learn, and it's all different, and we have different setups, different things we're going through. We talked a little bit about reincarnation, and then the person said, "Oh, well, I don't really want to come back as a cat." And I said, "Oh, I'd love to come back as a cat, have a nice, restful life." And then I started to think around maybe the reason for the cat is to have rest, is to recuperate, to heal, to, I don't know, get over whatever lifetime they've previously had. So then you're talking about past lives, you're talking about the things we need to learn in this life. Do you have any insight into the animals? Are they in these other levels? Is that only an Earth thing?
So this is actually a very complicated question to answer. I'm going to try my best.
Okay.
So we have 9 bodies altogether. We have the physical body, we have the physiological body, we have the astral body, we have the psychotypical body. We have all the other bodies that make us a human being. So human beings are unique because we have the sparks of divinity. Because when God created us, it inserted a tiny portion of itself to each one of our astral bodies. So we have the sparks of divinity, but animals don't. Most animals only have 3 bodies, like the cows, like other animals. And our astral body and the animals' astral bodies are made of electrons. So when we die, we go through a very interesting process. So you have to listen to this, it's very interesting. When we die, our astral body leaves our physical body. And then because our astral body is made of electrons, and there's a separation of the electrons, 81% of electrons would go to our higher self after 3 days.
Okay.
And this is why Christ resurrected after 3 days. This is why the Tibetan monks or the Tibetans have a culture in which the corpse of the dead are not to be touched for 3 days.
Yeah.
And then what about the remaining 19% of the electrons? They will go into nature until they're recycled by nature or when a person reincarnates. So this is why when people say they see ghosts, what they are seeing are actually the 19% of electrons that remain in nature. Because electrons of that nature have static forces, they resemble the appearance of the person who just passed. And also because electrons have memories, they frequently haunt the places they loved or hated. So speaking of animals, when an animal is born, it can take the 19% of electrons that remain in nature. So sometimes animals may have tendencies or aspects of a human being, but not entirely, because they can only absorb certain electrons that remain in nature that come from the 19% of the electrons of the astral body. But the animal will never become a human being in that respect. And a human being will never become 100% animals. only a portion of the electrons can be can go into animals or go into human beings. That's a 19% of the electrons. So this gets a little bit complicated. I hope
Yeah.
I'm explaining it well.
Well, I mean, it is complicated, and I can't help but wonder, Samuel, and this isn't to come across offensive in any way, but part of me goes, how can you even prove this? How do you know it's 81 versus 19%? Is that coming from Michelle's experience alone? Like how do we trust this information?
Yeah, if you read the book, you'll know. I believe
Okay.
if you read the book, you're going to understand everything written in the book has specific verifiable foundation. And you know, I work with a lot of lawyers and doctors. I
Mm,
need proof. I need logic. I need foundations and basis in order for me to believe anything.
yeah.
And this book contains a lot of specific verifiable facts. I'll just give you a few examples. One example is that when Michel Demarquet entered into their spacecraft, he was disinfected using yellow light and blue light. And if you do additional research, you're going to find out that Harvard Medical School has a paper on the antibacterial, antiviral effects of blue lights, certain wavelengths of blue lights.
Mhm.
So it's proven by scientists that blue lights have antibacterial, antiviral effects. And just a few years ago, way after the book was published, also research came out saying that certain wavelengths of yellow light also have antibacterial effect. So this is years after the book was published.
Yeah.
And also, like if I say to you that there's a tomb of Jesus in Japan, you wouldn't believe me because you didn't know about this. I'm sure you don't know about this,
I
but
don't
if
know about this, but
right,
I don't know
but
enough to not know, well, to question. Yeah.
right. But if you read the book, you're going to see a very detailed description of the tomb of Jesus in Shingo Village, Japan, that people can still visit. Michel Demarquet was a landscaper, a farmer in Australia when the event happened. And and the book was published in 1993, years before the internet came to Australia.
Mm.
And Michel didn't know how to type, how to use a computer. He didn't know how to use a computer, not to mention how to use the internet. He never traveled to Japan. How could he have known such detailed descriptions of the tomb of Jesus in Japan? And also, there are things that happened that in the past, as mentioned in the book, such as Project Westford in the 1960s. The US scientists or NASA collaborated with MIT, sending hundreds of millions of needles into space and just to help the telecommunication signals um, at that time. And then this book specifically mentioned about Project Westford that only a few people know or knew back then. And there are also other details, such as the ETs preventing Germany from being the first country to develop the atomic bomb during World War II. And, and, and actually, Germany, if you do research, you're going to know that Germany was far ahead of the US government in developing the atomic bomb. And, and you can learn about Dr. Heisenberg, the well-known German scientist who um, provided the research paper or paper that was read by Hitler that made Hitler decided not to proceed with the development of the atomic bomb because Heisenberg made a stupid mistake, a very stupid miscalculation, which a scientist like him shouldn't have made. And I suspect that's due to the intervention of the ETs. There are
Yeah, I was
also
just
other,
thinking that.
yes,
Yeah.
there are also like specific details that you have to, you're going to be amazed when you read a book that it has to be true. Yeah.
So I'm very curious. There's a lot of information in there, and like you say, you have to read the book. I have got the book. I can't wait to get my hands on it and get into that book. I don't know, you've blown my mind a little bit, Samuel, with all of these things. The purpose of life is to get through the levels. We're here to learn. We're here to have our physical yet spiritual experience. Is there one theme that overruns everything? Is there one thing that we need to really be aware of and really think of as we're doing our time here on Earth?
Yes, we all have challenges. We all have problems in our lifetime. The way to respond is not only just to follow the teachings of Christ, but also to look inside for answers. Because through our prayers or meditation, or just by having a good night of sleep, we can connect to our higher self. Because our higher self can direct us and also to give us solutions if the solutions are good for spiritual development. Only if the solutions are good for spiritual development. If you ask for money, for wealth, you probably won't get it unless it's going to help you grow spiritually. But if you ask for compassion, if you ask for wisdom, if you ask for love, if you ask for knowledge, I think you're going to get that. And I think it's important to look inside for answers. For the kingdom of God is within you, says in the Bible. So I think that's the most important thing to keep in mind of.
Gosh. Any insights into the future, into what's coming up? Are we meant to know about that?
Yes. This is
All of the
why,
above, or?
yes. This is why I took so much pain to visit Michel de Marquet. And this is why I wrote an article titled The Second Coming of Jesus Christ. What do you need to do to be prepared? And I think we are at a very critical moment of time. We are at a cross point. We need to pay attention to how we live. We need to live spiritually and not to be so dwelt on the materialistic aspect of our lives. And it's important that we act now because otherwise we're going to be heading a catastrophe. And I think people need to have the knowledge to respond to the situations correctly. So this is why I've been promoting the concept and the ideas of the book on different podcasts, including yours, so that people can be awakened. And I hope people can wake up and to act and um, to to join me and to join us in a concerted fashion and to form this kind of movement against the tyrannies in the world.
Well, thank you, Samuel. I have found this conversation so interesting. There is so much in it. I'm very challenged by our conversation, so I want to say thank you for that. Yeah, how cool. And if somebody's out there and they're thinking this has really inspired me, what's next? Do you need to jump on a plane and go and visit the author? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there because I love that sense of adventure. I love that sense of that's probably within your purpose. Samuel, on a side note, do you ever think, what if I hadn't have gone to see him?
Then I wouldn't be promoting the book because I learned about
No.
the secret kept by the ETs, kept by the author.
Yeah. Yeah. How your life would be so different, wouldn't it?
Right, it would be much different. I would be still earning a lot of money, being a court certified interpreter,
Yeah.
and taking care of my family, and not thinking about how to help the rest of the people to wake up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. I admire your commitment. I admire the risk and the challenges that you've taken because I can see this topic wouldn't be easy the whole way through. So, Samuel Chong, thank you so much for everything. Thank you for your conversation and thank you for your book.
Thank you, Kristen.